Hi, I'm Hank Zona, and I have a passion for wine. I grew up in a family with immigrant grandparents, and wine was a big part of everyday life. As I got older and my interest in wine grew, I wanted to learn as much as I could about it. And as my knowledge increased, I kept coming back to my roots with wine. Wine is something we share with family and friends. It's for fun, it's for pleasure. Now I want to share my knowledge and passion for wine with you. Please join me as we explore wine from all different angles on The Grapes Unwrapped. Hi, I'm Hank Zona. Welcome to The Grapes Unwrapped. We're coming to you today from Arturo's in lovely downtown Maplewood. This show is going to be about my passion for wine, and part of sharing that passion with you is bringing on guests who also have a passion for what they do and how it relates to wine. Today, my guests are the owners of Arturo's Osteria here in Maplewood, Dan Richer and Fred Shandler. Guys, welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Nice to have you here. Tell us a little bit about Arturo's, how you've come to be what you are today.
Well, I bought this place when I was 26, 4 years ago, and it was a failing corner pizzeria, and with no direction, nothing, no soul, no passion behind it. And I brought all of those things by slowly integrating new dishes and retraining the staff and giving what people of Maplewood want, which is great food and great hospitality. And then a few years later, I found Fred, and we have now become business partners, and he's amazing at all of the things that I am pretty terrible at.
And the other way around.
Describe the food. What's your style of food? What's your focus and approach?
We have a wood-fired oven, which we'll get into in a little bit. So we do pizzas and we do pastas. Which is something that Dan's very passionate about. We source a lot of our ingredients locally from
New Jersey organics or sustainable farms. We put a lot of energy into sourcing all of our products, whether they're vegetables or pasta, or I have like 6 different types of extra virgin olive oil in the back. You know, I have 7 different types of sea salt from different places all through the world. So I break everything down to the basics, from the salt and oil to all the way on through. And if you start with great ingredients, you're almost guaranteed to end up with an amazing product. And
again, the passion comes through, I think, in the food and also with your customer base too. They feel it as well. I can say that. Arguably, you're best known for your pizza, but it's not your typical New Jersey pizzeria type pizza. Tell us how you've developed it, how you've gotten to this point.
I've been studying bread for a number of years now, and if you understand what great bread is, you have a better chance of making great pizza, because pizza is actually bread with a condiment or topping on it. And if you understand the principles of fermentation and of bread making, you're much better. You have much better chances of making great pizza. But we use a starter culture, which is a combination of flour and water that wild yeast and different types of bacteria live inside. And this actually is what leavens our pizza or makes it rise. But it also lends incredible flavor to the dough as well.
Can I check that out a little
Absolutely. You can actually smell it. It's
well, that is a
mildly
good time.
Exactly. It's mildly
mildly
acidic.
Yeah.
And it.
I'm going to wait to taste the finished product, though. I'm not going to.
It's a lot better.
That, so.
It's a lot better that way.
One of the things that really interests me about your place, or one of the other things that interests me about your place, is that you have become a wine destination even though you don't have a liquor license. I'd like to talk a little bit more about that, but first, one of the things that we're going to do here today is try one of those pizzas and also try a few wines that go with that pizza. A couple traditional choices, so to speak, and one that's somewhat traditional, but a wine that most people don't really know as much about, and to see how they pair well with your pizza.
Sounds great.
Sounds good. We'll be back in a few. We're back, and now we're ready for pizza and wine, since this is a wine show. Dan and Fred bringing a couple pizzas that are fresh out of the oven. We do not have smell-o-vision here, but I got to tell you, it smells really good in here right now. So one of the things I'm going to do is run through a few wines. And now these are wines that I think are going to be really good pairings with pizza. People really traditionally like to have wine with their pizza. The wines I chose, a couple of them are wines that people would typically have with all different types of pizza, and then I chose one that is probably a good pairing and somewhat typical, but not one that is as well known. Let's taste these wines. The first one we're going to have is a Barbera d'Asti. This is from Piemonte, Dan and Fred's favorite region, and this is a wine that goes really well with pizza and the components of pizza. Give us a little talk about what the components are in the pizza as I'm pouring this wine, and then we'll talk about why I think it pairs up well with it.
I guess I would pair both of these pizzas with the Barbera, but more specifically this one with our mushrooms, a little bit of our handmade fresh mozzarella, and we topped it with a little bit of truffle oil and some sea salt. And truffles are from the Piemonte region, about 25 minutes south of where this wine is grown. So if it grows together, it goes together. And it should be really tasty. Barbera is a nice big wine, one of my favorites.
Absolutely, and you made a good point there. One of the pairing principles I like to use is if you're using a local food, go with a local wine.
Exactly.
Because that's what the people are drinking with their food. And this is the Barbera. It's the Barbera grape from Piemonte. One of the reasons why this is a good pizza wine is because it's got a lot of good fruit forward. It's got some heft and some strength to it, but it also has good acidity and not high tannins. And that acidity helps cut through cheese, the crust, also if you've got acidity from tomato or for some other vegetables. So I'm going to give this a little taste. You may notice too, we're drinking out of these nice little glasses. You may traditionally drink your wine out of a glass like this. And that's nice, you can do that, but to me wine is all about pleasure, it's all about tasting. It doesn't matter what you drink it out of really. And so we're drinking the wine really out of a glass that you would traditionally be drinking out of in an Osteria if you were sitting in Piemonte right now.
Super
Absolutely.
casual.
Yep.
Cheers.
Cheers.
As always.
That's a nice wine. Again, you can taste that acidity. It's not a high tannin level in that. That's really going to go nicely with those pizzas. You're right, too, especially with the truffle pizza.
Exactly.
Second wine I'm opening up here is Zinfandel. Zinfandel, for years everyone thought this was a Native American grape. They did some DNA testing and realized that it is the same grape as Primitivo from Apulia in southern Italy. Southern Italians got really worked up about it and said, it's not American, it's actually an Italian grape. Well, they did further DNA testing. They traced it back to Croatia, so the Italians didn't have the last laugh there. Again, Zinfandel, though, has fruit. It's got acidity. It's got that big brambly taste. Pairs really nicely, again, with tomato, with cheese, cuts through all of that. This is a Zinfandel from Moritzen Winery in California. I've met Clay a number of times. Here's a guy who, again, is very passionate about the wine he makes. They've been growing grapes for 6 generations in his family. He's the first one to actually make the wines. This is a really nice, prototypical California Zinfandel.
And he produces great stuff.
He produces great stuff. He really does.
He's got that same mentality of put passion into whatever you do, and it'll be great.
Right, and one of the first tastings I ever brought you to, we got to actually
I was
meet
hanging
him,
out with him.
and
It's great.
And it was nice to see the two of you interact because, again, people on both sides of the table, on different sides of the food and wine business, but sharing a very similar passion, which I think was really good. Third wine is a wine that most people either have never had or probably don't know much about, Lambrusco. It almost conjures up a negative impression, if you will, of a really cheap, spritzy wine. This is a nice Lambrusco. Lambrusco really comes from Emilia-Romagna, which is also a region of Italy that is known for making some really amazing and fantastic food.
The best food.
Perhaps probably the best food,
Exactly.
really at the heart of it all.
It seems like the wine is more fun than serious because they take their food way too seriously.
That's a really good point. The other thing about Lambrusco is it's got a slight fizz to it. I love wines with a fizz, especially with food. The fizz in the wine helps cut through smoke, cut through heat, cut through a lot of flavors. Same reason why a lot of people will pair beer with pizza.
Absolutely.
A wine with a fizz, and this has a light fizz. It's known as a frizzante in style, which is similar to Prosecco, which more people have had a taste of. So it's not the big high bubble fizz, but just enough, again, to cut through it. As you mentioned, fun wines with serious food, it's fun, but it really works really well. And again, it comes back to my principles about wine being about pleasure, being about the social aspect of drinking, not a snob appeal thing. So we're going to pour a little bit of that Lambrusco. You can already see how it's fizzing up and a little bit lower in alcohol too.
Plus, in Emilia-Romagna, there are Lambrusco producers that take it very seriously. So you will find great Lambruscos.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you can even see that fizz in that glass there. That's a nice wine, and what this really tastes more like is a red wine with a fizz, as opposed to a sparkling wine that happens to be red. So it really hits on both those notes. It has that acidity, it has those bubbles, but it also gives you that red wine structure that would go really well with the food as well. I guess the next thing to do is to try a piece of the pizza.
Let's do it.
And I think what I'm going to do here is try some of the mushroom with that first wine, with the Barbera. Again, I want to go local up against local.
Just hits you. That's scent.
It's scent, it's taste, it's texture.
Definitely.
I'm a lucky guy right now, by the way.
The texture is something that I always talk about. If you ever see me eat pizza, it's kind of funky looking. I usually rip open the crust to expose the interior of it's called the crumb. And you see this great gelatinous, creamy, elegant texture. And then you have the crusty outside, so it's great texture.
And almost melts in your mouth too.
Exactly,
Which is really
This
kind of
stuff in here is
a nice feel for that. And again, it's someone asked me the other day, how do you taste wine? I was doing an event and asked me, how do you taste wine? I said, well, the very first principle that matters most is, do you like the way it tastes? And that really should be what your overriding principle is. The second principle I talked to them about was about mouthfeel, how it actually feels in your mouth, how it interacts. Is it creamy? Is it fizzy? Is it chewy? Is it viscous? And then you talk about the interplay then with the wine and those components, as well as the components that are in the food itself, and you've got yourself a pretty happy time. And I'm a happy guy right now, I have to tell you. Really good wine, really great pizza, wine from passionate winemakers, food from passionate food artisans, and that's what you guys are here. It's really an artisanal production of your food, and that's fantastic. So we're going to take a quick break and come back and talk more about wine and food and Arturo's and the grapes Unwrapped. So this is what's open on Hank's counter. I always have something open on the counter, sometimes more than one thing on the counter, and people ask me what I'm drinking. Well, here's a good example of some of the things I have open right now. First, from New Jersey, Tomasello Vineyard. I was pretty impressed with this when I tasted it for the first time, especially because the grapes were grown locally. It's a Sangiovese and Shiraz blend. Grapes are grown down near the Pine Barrens, and 2008 was a nice warm summer. So I had this wine. It's a nice light wine. Comes in about 12% alcohol. What really impressed me about it, though, was that it cost me $9, and I thought it was a really nice wine. You can see that nice bright color on that and clear color. Next thing I've been drinking, and I really like this winemaker. This comes from Charles Smith. Charles Smith is really known as kind of like the rock star of winemaking. He was a rock promoter in Scandinavia. He now makes these incredibly expensive but really highly rated wines in Washington State, mostly Syrahs. This is a Merlot called Velvet Devil. He also has a Syrah called Boom Boom. Also has a Riesling, which I really love, called Kung Fu Girl, which has been really popular at a few events that I've done. This is, and these wines are all priced really nicely at about $12 to $15. I'm going to taste a little bit of this one. That's a nice color. It's really nice wine. This guy's got a great sense of humor, great labels. Last but not least, it's really cold these days. Petite Syrah, there's nothing petite about it. And it's not Syrah, it's its own grape. This is a really big, thick, chewy, inky, high alcohol kind of grape, kind of wine. Where that Tomasello came in around 12% alcohol, this comes in close to 15%. It's a late ripening, last pick grape in California. This is from 3 Wine Company, which is from Matt Klein of Klein Vineyards. You can see how dark and deep this is. You can even see how it kind of stains the glass. I tasted this the other night with some of my wife's brownies. They're big and chocolatey and buttery. And I took a sip of this and I said, wow, this was really great with those brownies. When I had it on its own, though, it was so big and so tannic, it really wasn't drinkable. This is 4 days later now, 5 days later actually, since I opened it. You can still see how that kind of coats that glass. can see the thickness on that. And now it's a lot more drinkable because those tannins have tamed, they've blown off. So it's a much more drinkable wine than it was when I opened it. So that's what's open on my counter right now.
There's a place not so far away, a place where you don't have to keep the volume down. You'll find all sorts of creatures in this place without have to. The silly you, the proud you. You may even meet the curious you.
It's tickling me! You!
Ask your parents to take you to this not so far away place. Come to the forest, where the other you lives. But first, stop by discovertheforest.org.
Hi, we're back with Dan and Fred from Arturo's. Guys, you don't have a liquor license, but you have become a wine destination.
Definitely.
Why do you think?
Because wherever there's good food, there's going to be good wine, always, or beer.
Okay, that's true. People do bring that in as well. What kind of wines do you see? Are people bringing in $2 Chuck, or are they bringing in?
We see everything from the $3 bottles all the way up to, like this one that my friend brought in, which is probably the best wine that was ever brought here. It's a 1983 Margaux. Would be definitely in the thousands of dollars.
In the thousands.
for
How
this
many people
bottle.
drank that?
A decent amount.
Okay.
A decent amount.
Did you get to taste it?
Absolutely.
And-
Absolutely.
And that's kind of fun, isn't it? When people bring in this great juice.
Exactly. And the fact that, a table of four guests brought this big bottle in, and they were sharing. We have these giant communal tables that that really lends itself to sharing and to opening up yourself and your lives to other people in the community.
Right. And I've been in here a number of times and have reached across to another table to share wine with somebody, and conversely, people have done that with me too, which is actually really cool. And it's a nice way to try things. So you don't have a liquor license, you don't sell wine, but you are a wine destination. What have you done to sort of increase your knowledge base about wine?
We constantly are studying, new books, we go to wine tastings with our friends.
With
Hank?
me. You've come to wine
Yes.
tastings with me. Yes, you have.
Exactly. We were in Italy last week, all the way started in Rome, and we ended up in Piemonte, which is my favorite territory. And we were driving through the towns of Barbaresco and Barolo, producer to producer and cantina to cantina.
Do you remember how many wines you tried last week?
That's
a tough question.
Yeah, we lost count after about 18, I would say. No,
all right.
a lot. And it was really fascinating to see wine that is actually brought in here by our guests, where it comes from, where it's produced.
That is
really incredible.
Really interesting. And one of the things we've talked about too when we've gone to some of these big tasting events, it's getting a feel not even so much for the taste of the wine, but who's making it and how it's being made, and bringing it back to the passion that some of these people are putting into the product as well.
It's those smaller producers that produce a very small amount of wine, but really high quality, that really attracts us and a lot of people, I think.
It's artisanal, and it's
Exactly.
small batch production, and really, in essence, that's what you are. You are artisanal food producers, and it is small batch. How many seats do you have here in the restaurant?
We have 40 seats,
You have 40 seats.
and 2 ovens. That's it. So we
Right.
can only produce a certain amount of food, and we like to keep it that way.
Right, so you can see how you're drawn to that style of winemaking, because that's your style of food production as
Exactly.
well.
Quality,
at your
not
place.
quantity.
And speaking of food production, next we're going to try one of your pasta dishes, because I know that's one of the things that you're always working on as well, and a wine that pairs well with that from Piemonte,
Piemonte,
which happens to be
absolutely.
your favorite part of Italy.
Exactly.
We'll be back in a moment with that.
So we have agnello di del Queen, which is Piemonte's specialty, filled with freshly cooked cheese, a little bit of spinach. So we just have a little bit of butter, unsalted. So we're just gonna really melt that butter. We're not gonna get too much color on it, not too much brown, nutty flavor. And we have our melted butter, sea salt. So we're taking the pasta out of the water. We're going to leave a little bit of the pasta water in to mix with the butter. Pasta coated with that minimal sauce. And then we're going to go in the oven and finish it together. Maybe to loosen it up a little bit. We always grate either Parmigiano Reggiano or Grana Padano, something from the Emilia-Romagna region.
It's pasta time, and more wine as well. Dan, what do we have?
This is called agnolotti del Plin. It's a very specific pasta to the Langhe region of Piemonte, which is where Alba is, and it's where this wine is, one of the wines is from. And the other wine is from a whole 25 minutes further away, so you would see this pasta dish. It's called agnolotti del Plin. It's a filled ravioli. The specific type, it's called plin because plin in Piemontese dialect means pinch, and we actually pinch each ravioli closed and cut it. That's how it gets its very unique character.
You were pinching them last night because I came in to talk to you, and we couldn't shake hands because your hands were covered in flour. So you were making these yourself, like a lot of your pastas.
Thousands. Yeah.
And it was featured last night, wasn't it?
Exactly, for our 6-course tasting menu.
Fantastic. Now we're going to revisit one of the wines we did with the pizza. That's the Barbera. And we're also going to try a new wine here as well, and that is the Dolcetto. Dolcetto is another grape that is native to Piemonte. It is also the wine that they're more likely to be drinking with their everyday food there. We talked earlier about Nebbiolo grape, which makes those big, huge Barolos and Barbarescos, which are incredible wines, but let's face it, that's not what they're drinking out of these glasses with their everyday food. Or with their typical cafe-style food,
Exactly.
Osteria-style food.
They export more than they drink.
Right.
Of the Nebbiolos, the Barbaresco and Barolo. This is what they drink.
Right.
And they have very contrasting flavors. The Dolcetto means little sweet one.
Right.
And it's a little bit on the sweet, not sweet in terms of sweet, but
Sweet is in terms of fruit.
much
more fruit
more
forward.
fruit forward. Exactly.
Right. And then you got a little more structure and body in the
Robust.
Barbera. The Barbera, this one happens to be from Asti, and the Dolcetto happens to be from Alba, two major food centers, if you will.
Major.
In Piemonte. Let's start with the let's start with the Dolcetto, which is on your left. Absolutely, a little sweet one. And again, this is not sweet. This is not syrupy or sugary, but you get more of that fruit. And again, there's the acidity, which we talked about as a big component in a lot of Italian red wines, because it really is what goes with Italian food. And that fruit forwardness, and really no tannins in there. There's not that chalky stick to your teeth, stick to your tongue type of tannin. What I'm also going to do is try some of the agnolotte.
Do it.
And then try it with the Dolcetto, and then go back and revisit with the Barbera.
We can't let him eat alone.
I know,
That's
I
not
know. No.
polite.
I got to tell you what, I love what I do. And
Me too.
I know you do. I
Same.
know you guys do. And this is one of the things, I keep coming back to that point. It's really about the social aspect. It's about the pleasurable aspect. And this is social. It's great to talk to you about this. It's also great to taste with you. So it's that's our Dolcetto.
Cheers.
Cheers. Now again, back to revisit that Barbera. Drier, don't have that fruit forward, but there's still plenty of fruit in there. Little more robust. Will hold up nicely to the cheese, or should I say cheese is, because you've got the cheese on top, the grated cheese on top, Parmigiano Reggiano, I'd
Exactly.
assume. And what cheese do you have in the agnolotte?
It's a fresh ricotta cheese from Connecticut. Really high quality, and it's just nice and delicate, like the pasta. The pasta is very delicate, but full of flavor, and elegant and complex. And it's just, with these two wines, they're really, for me, there's not a better pairing, and there's not a better Sunday afternoon, but
Right.
with a plate of pasta from Piemonte and some Piemontese wines.
And these wines work for a couple reasons. Again, we'll go back to that local food, local wine. We also are talking about the components in the wine and the food as well. One of the things I look for when pairing wines with food are the components that are in that food. There are a wide range of pasta dishes. You're not a red sauce pasta kind of place. These wines actually would work though with a red sauce, again because of that acidity that's in there to help balance and match the acidity that's in red sauce. If you had something that had more of a creamy sauce, you want to go with something that might have some more oak to it, more malolactic fermentation to sort of, again, balance that out. Even a big sort of a California-style Chardonnay might go something that's creamier, that creamy texture, mouthfeel of the Chardonnay, balancing that creamy texture of the cream sauce in the pasta dish. And again, that's some of the things that I look for is matching components, matching mouthfeel when you have the wines.
Absolutely.
So, this is a blast. Again,
Exactly.
we love what we do. It's kind of fun to share that, again, as we talked about at the beginning of the show, share that passion with other people. What's next? What's next for Arturo's? Where are you guys going?
Oof, we have so many things that we want to do and accomplish, but on the smaller scale, what's next is to continue to develop ourselves here. We have really high expectations for ourselves. And before the next step, which is obviously another restaurant, which we are very serious about and really aggressive in pursuing, we want to make sure that we really do it right here. I mean, just over the last year, and I'm sure you agree with this, we've grown exponentially internally, and that in effect has manifested to what happens in the dining room and what happens on everyone's table. So
We literally break down the entire process of when a guest approaches the restaurant and walks in our door and sits at a table, and we break down everything, and we're constantly developing and changing things and making it better for our guest. I always say to our staff, put yourself in the guest position. Are they going to be comfortable in that position should the table come out from the wall 4 inches? We really focus, just like with the sea salts, the olive oils, we focus on every aspect of the guest's experience here. And until we have a very solid understanding, which we do now, but until it's pretty much perfect, we're not going to move forward with something bigger and better, because we want to do it right. There's no point in doing anything if we're not going to do it right.
And to use a wine and food terminology here, you really have an organic and biodynamic restaurant here, and what you're giving your customers, and that's fantastic. This has been the very first Grapes Unwrapped show, and I couldn't think of better guests to have
Thank
to
you.
again share that passion. One of the things I talk about again, to me, wine is a social thing. It's a pleasurable thing, and I want to try to get that point across in the shows that we do. And it truly has been a pleasure to do the
thank
show
you.
with you guys.
Hank, I think
As
you're a
always.
tremendous host.
Yeah, tremendous.
Thanks.
Yes,
Thanks,
your
guys.
show is going to be a huge success.
Thank you.
And we wouldn't wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning
For just
on a
anyone.
Sunday for anybody.
For just anyone, Hank.
Thank you, guys. I do
welcome.
appreciate that. Cheers. See you
Absolutely.
next time.